Hey guys, welcome to Solo ReacTalk. Today I'm going to be reacting to the origins of the kin Leagues of VOTANN lore made by Baldermort's Guide to Warhammer. This is a continuation to the Leagues of VOTANN lore reaction videos. Well, the first one I started with was with the Galactic Core, home of the Leagues of VOTANN, and now we're continuing on with the origins of the kin. If you want to check out my previous reactions, remember the playlist card is going to be at the top. Just click on it and be able to access it. If you want to check out the original video as well as Baldermort's Guide to Warhammer YouTube channel, the links are going to be in the description below. Okay, let's start. 3, 2, 1, go. You know, I want to be ready. I want to, I want to enjoy that soundtrack. But okay, let's just continue.
Leagues of VOTANN lore. Origins of the kin. We talk, my partner and I. Our hearth is strong, our bond unbreakable. Yet we do the dance. We know the steps. We know nothing will change, but we do it anyway. It makes things easier. She sallies at me. Why go? They will never be like us. They are different to us, she says. Yes, but it is believed they are our distant cousins. We have shared DNA, shared history. Perhaps a shared future.
They're talking about they're talking about humanity from the Imperium of Man. Okay, yeah.
She retorts. They wave candles at computers, mutter chants at gears and pulleys. Whatever common ancestor you say we may have had is distant indeed.
Yeah, very distant. Very, very, very distant. I don't know if you guys actually come from Terra or Earth. I'm not entirely sure if your distant ancestors come from there as well, or maybe you guys were just, genetic space babies that were made in space, and you were designed for one specific task to mine in the galactic core, because that's your home turf. That's where you guys thrive the most. So I'm not sure, whether you hail from Earth or were you just test tube babies that were created in space. I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, you guys are still, cousins in some sort of way. And yeah, your cousins are stagnant. Your cousins are regressing, but I think there's still hope for them, maybe.
How can you trust those who live the way they do? I retort. Where has trust ever come into trade, let alone battle?
Trust is very important in trade. In battle, I'm not entirely sure. Like maybe in your own comrades, sure. You trust in them. You can't trust the enemy. But in trade, trust is very important. But we continue.
We know they are changeable, inconsistent, ignorant and bitter. We are aware. You overestimate these barbarians, she says. Humans. Pah! They breed by chance, luck, and they look like every coupling was the worst possible genetic outcome possible. I respond. Yes. They have their frail and weak of mind or body, and we do not. We are forged. But perhaps we have cheated ourselves. She plays the game. What? She says, puffing up. Oh, don't play that card. You know I play anvil to your hammer, as I have said before. Yes, they have their negatives in their choice of reproduction. Yet, with every negative outcome, as you put it, there is the other extreme.
I like that saying. I play my anvil to your hammer. I like that. It's very cute. Yeah, the Leagues of VOTANN have certainty when it comes to reproduction. because I'm not sure if they're clones or are they, just test tube babies that have been manufactured. But yeah, you guys have a certainty. You know what you're about. I don't know if there's anyone in your civilization with any form of genetic abnormalities, like how humans, with us, it's kind of like a risk. Sometimes the children who are born don't really have all the physical attributes of a human being, or they are diseased, or they have some sort of mental situation. And yeah, with us it's by chance and it's by luck, and with you guys it's utter certainty, because you are made to be this way. The question is why and who did it.
There is beauty, talent, ability that we no longer can throw up. They have a saying, a 1 in a billion man or woman. She cuts me off as usual, which is pathetic unto itself, she says. Even if they have the extremes of bad and good, as you say, then their baseline from which these extremes come, it is far lower than our average. And their culture retards any that would have had the potential for greatness. I respond.
True. They would call you a heretic almost immediately. If you don't go the same path like everybody else, if you don't act the same way like everybody else, you are a heretic. You will be burnt or you'll be tortured and then killed. So yeah, she has a point there.
And as usual, I know. And I believe, of course I do. And, not but, and. I still think there is merit within them. Potential. A sally I have not heard before now comes from her mouth. I do not want you to throw away your life on a people who will only regret your passing at their own hands in some distant time when they have progressed again. What if they are not moving forward at all, but backwards, declining? Everything we know of them states this is true. And perhaps they do not. All I know for certain is that the tear across the galaxy, the stars, has changed everything. Outside, in far space, she says. No. Here too, you must concede that. She replies, their messes come to haunt us aye. We fight their corrupt marines. We give them aid by standing firm and destroying their enemies here in the core, reducing the threat they face. We aid them without even their knowledge.
I want to see the type of weapons that they use, the kin. I want to see the type of weapons that they use. Do they also use energy-based weapons like the Tau, or do they use projectiles just like the Imperium of Man? Yeah, it'll be quite interesting to see how do they fare against Chaos Marines, and how is it that they're able to push them back and keep their region of space still secure for the Leagues of VOTANN,
And still, I say, I am sworn to my word, and my word is given and not refused. The prospect leaves tomorrow, as do I. You never were able to finish this argument, she says. I just did. By running away? No. By heeding your counsel, but doing as must be done. Your warning in my ears. I now go, but I will be safer for it. But you have done all you can. Now I must do all I can. And I will go, and you will maintain our name in the hold until I return. Can you do that for me? She looks down and then looks up. Yes, I will.
They didn't say I love you, but, they are saying I love you. Oh gosh, I like the discussion here between these two. He is the anvil to her hammer. Yeah.
Always. And when I return, I shall bring you a pearl the worth of a planet. She looks me deep in the eye. Fight well, endure. Bring honor to our name.
That was so cool.
Welcome, gentle listener. I am Baldermort, your faithful servant, and I wish to introduce you to the factions, forces, and faces of the Warhammer 40k setting, the grim darkness of the far future, where there is no time for peace. There is only time for war. Don't forget, we have a natural history and mythology channels now. Links in the description, so go have a shufti. Now, let us proceed. And today, we shall be delving into the genesis and history of the kin of the Leagues of VOTANN. Now, do bear with me, as even after the lore, there is much I wish to tell you. So stick around. I guarantee your eyebrows will at least flutter, and you will not regret the stay. And so, as usual, let us lean on the new existing wisdom from the first codex for the Leagues of VOTANN. To quote, Origins and Adaptions. It is possible that the ancestor cores retain records of all kin history since their earliest days. If such information survives, however, it is likely buried beyond recovery. Accordingly, even the perennially thorough and practical kin have been forced to accept that, after a certain point, their ancient histories blur into myth.
Yeah, it's completely understandable. It's been the better part of, 10,000 years, maybe even more, for the Leagues of VOTANN, because we're not entirely sure when these guys were made, whether they left Terra or whether they left any of the colonies of mankind. We're not sure about anything. Or maybe Baldermort knows and he's going to tell us right now. But yeah, it has to be a very, very long time ago, and it's completely understandable if that information has been lost with time.
The Leagues of VOTANN are named in honor of VOTANN itself, who is also known variously as the Primal Ancestor, the Gilded One, or the Stone Mind, amongst others. In some kin myths, VOTANN was not one being but many, and is sometimes depicted as a group of gleaming golden figures or a wheel of graven stone faces. In other myths, VOTANN fashioned the first crucibles, then raised the kin up and sent them sailing into the dark void, before oceans of fire and flesh rose to swallow them. Some myths spoke of VOTANN as eldest and wisest of the first ancestors, themselves shadowy presences, ill-defined and shown in many different forms, both humanoid and otherwise, where they are depicted at all.
Interesting. So they don't really know the origins of VOTANN itself. They think it's probably a singular person or it's a group of people, whether of leadership or a group of people that have been made and they became the VOTANN. They're not entirely sure. Interesting.
With typical pragmatism, the kin accept that their myths are too contradictory, allegorical, and suspect to be cited as possessing a definite basis in fact. But none of this troubles them overly. Steeped as they are in tradition and dour realism, the kin feel less need than humans to don the armour of faith. They are not frightened by the inexplicable. Instead, they accept reality as they see it to be. If there are matters in their ancient past of which they have no understanding, then, unless those matters suddenly become relevant to their present, the kin set them aside.
They're very pragmatic. They don't really dwell on the past, or they don't dwell on, what they don't understand at that very moment. They push it aside and just continue on as forward, doing whatever they need to do. Unlike the Imperium of Man, those guys are fueled by their emotions. They are fueled by their faith, and they're fearful of the past because of what happened during the dark age of technology. They don't want to return to that point. They don't even want to discuss it or touch it. And yeah, it's interesting how these two societies have differed.
Of course. Many Grimnir continue to interface with the ancestor cores in the hopes of asking the right questions to unlock portions of their ancient history. Most do this more out of curiosity and a desire for completeness, however, rather than...
But you see, that's the most important thing there, out of curiosity. They have that choice to do it out of curiosity. When it comes to the Imperium of Man, there is no choice like that. The moment you try and do something out of curiosity, you are a heretic. You will be killed.
Being motivated by some existential need. For all this, there are certain articles of lost history that the kin deem indisputable fact. They call these the first truths. It is a first truth that their earliest ancestors departed the homeworld, almost certainly pre-imperial Terra, millennia ago aboard fleets of generation ships. It is a first truth that the kin were a cloned people from the beginning, and that the Iron Kin have been with them since those earliest days. It is a first truth also that the ancestors of the kin set out as miners, prospectors, and void dredgers, charged with exploiting the riches of the heavens.
The Iron Kin. Who are the Iron Kin? Is it the robots that were created by humanity? Is that what Baldermort is talking about? Okay.
Kin myth blends into recorded history around the time their Long March fleets were approaching the galactic core.
The Men of Iron, yes, okay.
Why they did not return to the heartlands of humanity is unclear. From the fact that so many kin fleets plunged into the galactic core within a period of only a few centuries, it might be inferred that a deliberate choice was made. It is during this period that the last references to the first ancestors can be found, often blurring with or transitioning into mentions of the ancestor cores. These are themselves also referred to collectively as the VOTANN, with the kin employing the two terms interchangeably. The first ancestors are cited here as agents of change and held responsible for the majority of the stable mutations, collectively known as clone skeins, that run through the kin gene pool. This pool appears to have been broad, deep and varied from the first, putting the lie to simplistic notions of a clone race all being literally identical. The VOTANN are thought to have hardened the kin both physically and spiritually. Some accounts claim that this was in response to a perceived threat, others that it was done to ready the kin for inhabiting their harsh new home in the galactic core.
The VOTANN, or should I say the kin, kind of remind me of the Kryptonians from the Superman movies, you know, how their entire society was also based on cloning technology, or not necessarily natural birth, but using machines to birth new children into existence. And they also tried to make their children as perfect as possible, you know, genetically rewriting them, making them either super strong or having, you know, unique abilities. And, you know, they had their place in society. Yeah.
In practical terms, the introduction of the clone skeins gave the kin denser musculature, tougher bone structures, higher red and white cell counts, exceptional core strength, and formidable physical resilience. More esoteric, but no less evident, are the changes worked on the kin's spirit, which caused their souls to shine far more dimly amongst the tides of the warp than those of humans. The kin evidenced no uncontrollable psychic mutation, and only those with the appropriate psychoactive clone skein can activate the so-called barrier tech that allows psychically active kin to interact with the Empyrean.
Interesting. So they can also control how many in their population are have the ability to control, you know, the warp, you know, or to enter into the warp, or to use the warp as an extension of themselves. They're able to control, you know, in terms of the population, of how many of these types of people should exist. And that's interesting. That's very interesting. And the fact that they've been genetically altered to the point where their souls are dimmed within the warp. Thus, they are not They are not the interest of demons. Like demons are not going to take them as a potential avenue to the materium world. Unlike with humans, humans can be easily possessed, especially those who have an affinity with the warp. Those guys like shine so brightly, and demons are attracted to them. But then with these guys, they've been able to manipulate that and keep themselves safe from the creatures in the Immaterium, and they are controlling how many people who are able to connect with the warp exist in their society. So I think there's some lessons there that humanity in the Imperium of Man should take. However, because they're using cloning technology, they're manipulating their gene, this is heresy, and they are mutants, so they won't touch these guys' research, they won't touch these guys' abilities, clearly.
It is rare indeed that kin fall victim to physical mutation, demonic possession, or the temptations of chaos. Hostile psychic abilities struggle to find purchase upon them. It has been suggested by some outside observers that this very hardening of spirit led the kin to become even more obstinate and conservative in character. If this is so, then it is just one side of a metaphysical feedback loop that has benefited their race greatly across the millennia. Beyond these benefits, there are many cloak schemes that impart useful physical abilities upon kin who possess them, from enhanced reaction times and vision that registers infrared or other energistic spectra, to limited resistance to extremes of temperature, gravity, or strains of cosmic radiation.
I wonder if they have their own version of the Astartes. And are they just as deadly or at par with the Astartes, or maybe they are far superior? I'm just wondering about that. Because if their entire society have these genetic advancements, in terms of living in the galactic core, they're already, far more capable of surviving in this galaxy than any regular human. It's just that we outnumber them by the trillions. Or should I say humanity outnumbers the League of VOTANN and the kin in the trillions. And that's our greatest advantage, really, as humanity, is that there were so many of us. And these guys, I don't know how many there are, but I know for certain that these guys are not in their trillions, unlike humanity. Yeah.
The list goes on. The clone schemes undeniably aid the kin in enduring the extreme environments of the galactic core. Many clone schemes manifest physically, whether it be unusual coloured eyes or skin, craggy subdermal layers, chemical body odours, or various other giveaways. To humanity, such physical abnormalities would surely be cause for prejudice and mistreatment. To the kin, they are rather badges of valuable ability, either bequeathed by the ineffable ancestor cores or encouraged by the cloners' guilds during gestation. Obscure legend gives way entirely to historical record during the following centuries. A scattered kindred fleet settled new worlds, establishing trade routes and becoming the first leagues of VOTANN. End quote. And so, we see the genesis of the kin of the leagues of VOTANN. Odd, for it is so dense actually. This entry means so much if you have but the wit to see. Now the kin are clearly not squats at all, for the squats were slowly made more robust and short due to the heavy gravity on the core worlds they colonized. But this is not the case with the kin of the VOTANN.
I think I need to check out a picture of a squat, just to see the difference between them and the kin. Yeah. Because I've heard of the term, or I've heard of the name of a different humanoid species called the squats. I just can't remember how do they actually look like. Do they look like Groths from the orcs or what? I'm just wondering about that.
For they are genetically engineered. They are designed thus. So they were never as tall as humans. They were never altered by the conditions they were exposed to, as they are all bespoke clones. They were always half-men, as some might put it. An odd statement, one might think, until I lead you into our second quote of the video. So let's get on the same page. Concerning the men of stone. To quote, "The men of stone were a class of artificially created beings created during the dark age of technology in roughly millennium 21. According to ancient accounts, the men of stone were engineered by the men of gold for the purpose of deep space colonization."
Men of gold? I don't think I remember those ones. I remember the men of iron, and now we're talking about the men of stone, which I'm assuming are the kin of the League of VOTANN, but I don't know who the men of gold are. Is it humanity?
Though physically inferior to their creators, they are capable of building great artifices and construct the men of iron as their eyes and ears.
So the men of stone created the men of iron?
As the stone men existed in a state of half-life, they were unaffected by the demons of the warp, something that made warp travel much easier for them. In time, mankind learned to place itself into the ships of the stone men, protecting them from the depredations of the warp. Over time, as mankind expanded into the stars, the men of gold lost their influence, and the men of stone became ascendant. However, the men of iron eventually rebelled against their stone creators, producing catastrophic wars that humanity barely survived.
And maybe that's one of the reasons why the League of VOTANN, or the kin, never returned to the outer galaxy. Once their creation started to rebel against humanity, they probably felt that they were responsible for this, and they started to retreat themselves away from the galaxy and went into the core, not only to protect themselves from their own creations, but also out of guilt, because they are the ones who created these things, and now they are rebelling against their creators.
End quote. And this was the tale of the men of gold, the men of stone, and the men of iron, an ancient tale. Hence, from my limited perspective, we have the answer to so many questions. So many comment strings, so many YouTuber videos, all surrounding this one tract from one book by the superb Andy Chambers. From my perspective, the question is answered. For the kin are not squats. The kin are the men of stone. They were always short, robust, and of limited soul brightness. They were designed to mimic humans, but not to ever be mistaken for them. And they are close to the iron kin, which are clearly early or prototype men of iron. But these ones stayed loyal. The genesis of the kin states that their fleets went into the core. Before, when they were squats, this made total sense. Now, the kin were clearly either avoiding a fight with the men of iron, which seems less likely, or had retreated from the rest of the human race when they started to destroy their technology in the purges after or during the cybernetic rebellion, so close in its pace to the Butlerian Jihad of June.
Okay, I never thought about that, that maybe they've started to retreat from the rest of the galaxy because humanity was going through this upheaval, of destroying their technology, destroying any form of artificial intelligence, and, they were going through essentially a dark age. And, the warp was in a chaotic flux. I mean, no one could really use it to travel anymore. And yeah, maybe that's also one of the reasons why they just retreated to the galactic core.
But such were the times that pilfering plot ingredients was not as frowned on as it is now. In any case, The kin match the description of the men of stone so perfectly. I cannot see this as an accident. Now every last person of law asks, "But what do you think?" And I never do. I do read most comments, but I tend to do my tap dance and then go to bed, quite often literally. But today, I do ask. Because this is such a new faction, such new law. Let us discuss it amongst ourselves with vigor, but with respect. Please.
I like their exoskeleton suits. I'm sure this is a kin, right? Of the League of VOTANN. I like his exoskeleton suit or his power armor, like a space marine. Yeah.
Please be nice, but do put down your thoughts in the comments. I read most on videos if I can, but on this one, I will be watching with avid interest. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Old hands, lend me your knowledge. New faces, let me feel your zeal. Hit me up with your perspectives, because I really want to know. As the week progresses, we shall see lots more of the Leagues of VOTANN. I hope you will join me on the ride. I have been Baldermort, your faithful servant. A swift reminder about our other channels, links in the description. I hope you enjoyed this brief introduction and will be joining me over the week as we explore this rich and fascinating new faction. And thank you for your precious time. Now, no matter what you do today, do try to make some time for fun. Toodaloo.
Okay, guys. Yes, that was the origins of the kin Leagues of VOTANN lore by Baldermort's Guide to Warhammer. Yes, I think that the Men of Stone are the kin of the Leagues of VOTANN. I think they are that group for a specific purpose. You know, mining, exploration. They've been genetically made to the extent that their souls are dimmed in the warp, meaning that there's less risk of them being possessed by demons as they enter into the warp. The point where the Men of Stone created the Men of Iron, that's quite interesting, and I could also see it as a possibility because, you know, the kin of the League of VOTANN, you know, they are very technologically advanced. They embrace technology. They progress with technology. Their entire being and existence is partly due to technology, you know, the cloning. And yeah, I can also see that as a possibility. And, you know, in the modern time, or should I say the 41st millennium, any form of communication between them and the Imperium of Man, yes, it's going to have to be something about trade, you know, because any other form of communication, I just don't see them working out very well together, because the Imperium of Man is full of religious dogma and superstitions, and, you know, they have this fear of technology, they have this fear of the past, while the Leagues of VOTANN, they are very progressive. They kind of seem like the Tau in a way, you know. Of course, they are far more matured, far more grounded, you know, unlike the Tau. And yeah, they are very, you know, reclusive. They're not like the Tau in terms of their expansionist ideals. But if there is one thing that is quite similar between these two peoples, is that technology in their lives is very, very critical and pivotal to their civilization's survival, you know. And I guess that's one thing that you could say is quite similar between them and the Tau. But yes, in any form of communication or discussions with humanity, with the rest of humanity, will be very difficult. It will take maybe hundreds of millennia before humanity has dug itself out of this, you know, stagnancy that it's in right now. And maybe they shouldn't communicate with them anytime soon. But because of the tear in reality, because of the Eye of Terror, things have to accelerate at a far more faster pace, and it's going to be very interesting to see the dynamics between these two peoples, the Leagues of Votann and the Imperium of Man, to see how they work together or how they have strained relations, and will there be some sort of unification between the two people? Maybe never. But yeah, it's quite interesting also to hear about the origins of Votann, whether it was one singular person or was it a group of people who were Votann, and all of that history from that far distant past has been eroded or has been lost over time, and that is also completely understandable, like I've said before. And yeah, can't wait to hear more about this very unique and very reclusive people, because we need something like this. I think we've been having so much bad and terrible and depressing situations in the Warhammer 40k universe. So these guys are like a breath of fresh air. Yes, a breath of fresh air. Because I don't trust the Tau. I don't really like the Tau. They're very shady. So with these guys, I think I'm gonna like them a bit more. Yeah, more than the Imperium of Man, maybe. Yeah. Okay, guys, I guess that's it today with Baldermort's Guide to Warhammer. Remember, if you want to check out the original video as well as Baldermort's Guides to Warhammer's YouTube channel, the links are in the description below. If you like my reaction, please give me a like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Click on the notification bell if you want to be up to date with my latest videos. And I guess I'll see you guys next week. Okay? Bye-bye.